Hello everyone, I'm here with my first review finally after all this time. I know I kept promising it, and now it's finally here. And I'm talking about Always a Chance, my favorite episode of Power Rangers in Space. We all know what the best episode is, let's be honest here, it's just my personal favorite. So, let's talk about the episode and how I think it's my personal favorite episode and one of the best focused episodes of all time. I think I like the fact that they used Carlos for focus because he didn't really get focused on a lot. He was a side part of Never Stop Searching and a side part of Grandma Matchmaker, which is one of the worst episodes, so that we're not even going to talk about that. And I like the fact that they use Cassie as a gateway to the main point that they were trying to get at in this episode the whole time. It's just a really good mistake that I think Carlos needed to make for his character to get pushed a little further, because up until this point Carlos didn't make a lot of mistakes. So like when he does finally make one, it's a big one in a way that affects his character going forward because he doesn't really know how to process it. That's why I like the fact that it takes Cassie to talk to him about this, to explain that like, yeah, we're a team, these mistakes happen. We can't afford these mistakes, but they happen because this is the duty we take. And in a season like Power Rangers in Space, when they are literally pinned against the wall and the whole universe rides on their shoulders, they can't really afford any mistakes. And a good point that I like to point out is, and I don't think anyone ever really did, was they used this as some kind of PTSD thing too, because he just really was out of it. He was having couldn't focus, couldn't really pay attention to what needed to be done. He just was afraid, and he was going through some really big doubt issues, which is why I think they used the perfect Ranger to help him come out of it, because Adam Park was the definitive Ranger with low self-esteem all of Mighty Morphin. He just could not get past his self-esteem issues or his confidence problems. And I love the fact that they use Adam, because Adam is the one that chose Carlos to replace him in the first place. So when it takes Adam to talk to him about it, when it takes Adam to literally explain to him that every Ranger has had these doubts before, it was a really good use of him. And it's always good to see Adam anyway. So when we do see him, it's like, hey, Adam's back. And I love the dynamic between a previous Ranger and a current Ranger, especially when it's done well. And I think this episode does it wonderfully. Granted, the fact that no matter how hard Adam trained him or how hard Adam pushed him, he just didn't think he'd be able to get through. And he chooses to resign as a Ranger, which is also a really good scene to pay attention to, because you can see that Carlos, this mistake has clearly put him at a point where he just can't bring himself to come out of the fact that one mistake doesn't define his entire career as a hero. And yes, this episode does do really well at pointing out that this is not an easy job to do. All those aspects that come into this episode that I really like, and the writing couldn't have been better for this episode, and I don't think this episode could have come at a better time, because there really hadn't been any episodes to show how difficult the job was. Like, we've gotten those episodes, but I don't think affecting a character this deeply such as this. So I really appreciate it. And I think one of the best scenes in Power Rangers ever comes out of this episode, when Adam chooses to save Carlos. If Adam uses that morpher, he's going to die. But it was all worth it. He needed to use that morpher because that's the only way he could have saved Carlos. Granted, the Zeo powers weren't technically lost, but I think they really needed this specific moment to make sense, because Carlos needed to realize that even Adam was risking his entire life to save him, which means that these chances need to be taken. So yeah, in a way it does make sense, but yes, also the Zeo powers weren't lost. So let's just go on with that. But it was enough for Carlos to get his intuition back, and it's one of my favorite episodes because I like to see that someone's broken and then they end up being fixed by the end. And I just love that. I love that dynamic so much in my episodes. I love that dynamic in characters, and I think it's a good push for them to push forward and be better later on. And honestly, just seeing Adam again is enough to just be like, hey, this is going to be an interesting episode. And seeing the fact that he was able to help Carlos in a way that I don't think any other Ranger could have done was another good push for the episode for me. Is because Adam is a very dynamic character, and he's one of the best Rangers of all time. And this episode is a very big reason why he is one of the best Rangers of all time. And he'll never lose that spot to me, because He was just, no other Ranger has ever come out and risked their entire life in 1 second to save another Ranger, and he has that under his belt. It's just a great episode, and I really love the dynamic that they use for him and Carlos and Cassie. Yeah, the other Rangers don't really have a lot to do, but they were still there. We see them. And I love the little nods that they do where they have Johnny wear green or black to symbolize the colors that he was wearing prior. So that was another pretty cool touch. And honestly, the episode doesn't really affect the plot of the story of the season going forward, but it is just a really nice solo episode to watch. And if you want to go back, and if I missed anything that you guys think I did miss, then please mention it in the comments. And that was Always a Chance, my personal favorite episode of Power Rangers in Space. And I'm glad I got to share how I felt about it with you guys. So this is me signing out. See you next time. And thanks for watching. Oh yeah, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow Tsukuyomi Night on Twitter, because that's where all the updates and stuff will be happening. Thank you guys.